So I really love the fact that you haven't gone down the route of just choosing a standard war poet for a start, because I think everyone knows things like Wilfred Owen and Siegfried Sassoon, and they've heard all of the poems, you know, to basically until the end of time, and actually finding one that's not by a famous war poet, but is actually also by a woman, I think is really, really interesting. So I think as a kind of starting point, it's a really good, interesting way of viewing things, because it is very much, it's about the soldier's experience, but it's also about the experience of, as you call them, their companions, and I think that's really, really compelling. You've got this synergy between the idea of someone reflecting on a lost person, or reflecting on someone that's been injured and they're lost to them at that time, but actually they're being mended, and that they're going to come through this whole process having essentially become a butterfly, I suppose, if you're using the chrysalis metaphor.
I was going to say, I like the fact you've looked at the recovery rather than the desolation, because you've sort of gone into, but it's a positive spin on those things rather than, you know, picking at the real negatives, of seeing something positive out of it.
Kind of actually thought, well, there were people that were lost for a period, but they kind of came through it. I think is really, really compelling.
Yeah.
So I think that's fantastic. I love the look of this book as well. You've given in terms of the materials is a really interesting one, because quite often we do have memorials here that aren't made of a material that particularly resonates with the reason behind that memorial, if you like. I mean, in terms of resilience, obviously a maquette isn't going to be particularly resilient, and if we did have something like this installed, it would have to be materials that are designed to last. I mean, generally we see memorials that are made out of stone and metal, don't we? So it would be interesting to see how mirror and stuff could be used. You know?
I like the reflective that you're looking at it.
Thank you.
You mentioned audio.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm just thinking of pragmatically in terms of, like, you know, outside, is that realistic?
Right,
Options with sound is actually quite interesting, isn't it? And I think it has the possibility of bringing things to life for people.
Yeah.
I think they're really, I really like this idea that you walked into a wood and you've got all of these things happening, but that they're almost part of this natural environment. It's, you know, and I think the fact that they're going to be 2 metres high is pretty incredible.
I like they've got the names on as well. I think that's really good, because especially for children who are doing this at school, they recognise these names, you know. So,
absolutely. The trees, you'd have to be really, really careful about how much you'd whack. But I think that idea that you've got some of them that are closed, they're still in that kind of Genesis period, this kind of creation being looked after almost within this chrysalis, but then you've got some that are half open. I really like that idea. I like the idea of having these figures up above as well. And what would they be made out of?
Ideally metal as well.
Okay.
Sort of fit with everything else.
Okay. And would they be 2D? So would they be flat? Would they be 3D kind of
sculptures?
Okay. Goodness. That would be a compelling thing for someone to come and see, wouldn't it? Because particularly because it's a really underused part of the Arboretum, as you identified. You know, I think it's really interesting that you kind of noticed that there was this area where we've got these kind of two disparate sculptures, and then you've just got this, what is essentially a blank space. This would fit really, really well with it, I think. It's not that I'm against it, it's just that I think it could just be linked better.
I think that's it. I like this as a separate entity, and that as a separate entity, and if you could tie those together, because it does when you do the text and read the text and things, it does match, but then it's showing that
using metal again is really, really interesting, because it is that quite stark contrast to the trees, that it's that close to the floor as well, that you've got this nice kind of juxtaposition between what are essentially dead leaves on the floor, and then you've got these kind of new flowers growing, which again kind of reflects this imagery of chrysalis, new growth, new life. And I think that that's really interesting and quite an exciting kind of visual play as well for people to engage with. As Natalie said, like I think that in itself is a lovely thing. It's just how it then connects for the viewer with the chrysalis area that's just carpeted in something is really strong, and it has a real kind of visual impact, and it's something that we lack here to some extent, because we obviously have the Armed Forces Memorial, everyone knows it. We've got some other really compelling memorials around the site, but we don't have anything that's that kind of close to nature that people are like, oh wow, you know, what are we looking at here? Do you know? Final sculpture, I blooming love this idea of going. I like that idea that you can go up above and kind of see this almost this like theatre of art essentially, and I think that's really interesting. And again, we don't have anything apart from the AFM where you can go up and look out across things, and having something else in the Arboretum where you could do that I think would be really good. But from a pragmatic perspective, wood obviously deteriorates. It's about having something that's fully weatherproofed and stuff. Well, I think what you've done is create a really kind of compelling story, if you like, and that's what people look for when they come here. So I think in terms of a self-made brief, I think you've done really well to kind of identify what is essentially an area of need and respond to that in a way that's, you know, quite compelling, visually stimulating, and quite arresting in terms of a visitor experience as well, because I think it would make people think like, oh, you know, what are these doing here? Who are these people? Why are we looking at them? What do these flowers mean? Do you know what I mean? And I think that kind of journey that you've taken is very evident in the kind of final outcome. So I think you've done a really good job in terms of trying to understand the space, understand what might happen there, and understand how you can then make it happen. Do you have to do any costings or anything for this kind of thing? I mean, just to kind of give you an idea. So the Armed Forces Memorial cost £7 million. The Pegasus Memorial, I don't know if you know that one, which is bronze, that was £550,000. And I think you have been very sympathetic in terms of obviously getting an understanding of the entire site and not just that one space where you're going to have it. So it's not completely anathema to what we would have here.